quarter and you get a couple things going for you, you get your first couple first downs in the game. What was it that was working well for you there that didn't the rest of the game?
Well, I think we found a couple things that we could beat them on by scheme. And, when you get into the game, you can get good teams with a couple of things, but then when their players start to play, they easily take away what you want to do just by their sheer physicality and their speed and their aggressiveness up front.
And defensively, you guys made your first stop right before that. Was there anything you noticed that you talked to them about during halftime as far as what to focus on defensively?
Well, when you play Tarboro, you know what's coming, and you have certain keys and responsibilities. And when you execute those things, good things happen. We found ourselves in a game where, there were a lot of points where we didn't execute. And hats off to Tarboro. They got a great football team. So sometimes when you do execute, sometimes their great players make some plays.
Yeah, how much of it did come down to just Tarboro executing pretty much start to finish and you guys not?
Well, I think that's a team that when you look at them, they really don't have a hole in that team. I mean, there's not a weakness that you can point at and go, okay, we can attack that. You got to play, balanced, fundamental football. And, they did a better job of that. And we tried to play catch up to where they were physically and speed-wise.
We've talked at length about what you guys are trying to do here since you took over. You brought in Coach Owens and all the focus on what you do in the weight room, discipline, accountability. How much of this game was like a physical manifestation of what can happen when when Tarboro does that for years and you guys don't?
Well, yeah, and we talked about that a little bit in the locker room tonight. Tarboro has been doing what they do for decades in the weight room and scheme-wise. And when you talk about Tarboro does what Tarboro does. And they expect that to beat whoever they play. And I would like Washington to get to Washington does what Washington does and stop it. But that starts in the weight room. And, we're a couple of years behind some other programs at the varsity level in the weight room right now. So we're playing catch up. But Tarboro is a great example of where we need to get. We talked about that with East Carteret last week too, because Caleb King started their strength and conditioning program over there, and they're in year 3 of what we're doing right now. Havelock is another good example. We saw them in the summer, and we told the kids they're in year 10 of what Jim Bob Bryant put in over there. So we're doing the same things, but we got to play catch up.
Now, it's not always a good thing when your punter is arguably the best player on the field tonight, but Hunter Hall was, right off the bat, I think he had a 45-yard punt on your first 3 and out. What did he bring here tonight?
Well, in a game where you have to punt it often, unfortunately, your punter does become the best player on the field. And Hunter played well. He got off some booming punts, and even one time I thought he outkicked his coverage. Fortunately, that one came back with a penalty. But, Hunter has punted the ball pretty well for us so far this year.
And you guys got to put him in for a couple snaps at the end. Did you notice anything, or was that more so just keeping Frederick off the field in the lopsided game?
Well, that's giving him a chance to get some live reps against another team, a quality team late in the game. Obviously you wish that you could get into a game where you can rotate them in and out. We'd like to do that at some point this year. But right now, Hunter's getting his reps when he can, and he's doing fine.
Was there anyone that did stand out to you offensively moving the ball? I know it was tough to get through their front, but there were a couple of glimpses. G had a couple good runs there. Hakeem kind of ripped off 1 or 2 on that one series in the third quarter. Anything you noticed?
Yeah, well, I thought our offensive line, even though they were physically outmatched, I thought they battled their tails off and did a great job. And then G Parker and Hakeem also, they did their job. They battled as well as they could. Losing Mike Clark early in the game hurt us a lot with depth and some of the things that we were planning to do with him.
Do you have an update on Mike?
He couldn't finish the game, and we're a little worried about that knee.
Okay, and lastly, after this one, how do you bounce back and go face Conley, another really, really strong offensive team?
Well, there's no doubt. Our first 3, is kind of a murderer's row, and for Conley, it's kind of a different game plan. But don't let them fool you. Just because they sling it all over the place doesn't mean they don't run the football well. Ehlers can tuck it and beat you just as well as he can with his arm. So we have to get better fundamentally. What we tried to do in the second half tonight is get better at what we do, and if we can do that next week and in preparation for Conley, I think we can go out and give ourselves a chance to win.